Now the two centre bascles, folks, where that link the road together, the two arms, they can each raise in around 90 seconds to allow bigger ships into this part of the river. It's been a royal mint, it's been a zoo, it's been an observatory, but it's probably best remembered as a prison and as a place of execution. Looks at a river wall on the right, and you can see a bricked up archway and the sentence above, entry to the Traitors Gate. Now years ago, traitors to the crown were brought to this point, taken through this archway, up onto Tower Hill to await execution. The preferred method of execution, the chopping block. Your head would be laid across a wooden block, and your head would then be removed from your shoulders by the means of a very large, often blunt axe, which sometimes took more than a few chops to get the job done. A very gruesome form of execution. Of course, today we no longer use this form of punishment. Today we have something much worse. Community service, which I think is much more of a deterrent. Twice he's had to do it now, and both times he said it wasn't very pleasant. A few famous people to go through Traitors Gate and never return were Anne Boleyn, one of Henry VIII's wives, Sir Thomas More and Guy Fawkes. And today, folks, the Tower, it houses the crown jewels. It should definitely be on your list of things to do whilst here in London. Visit the Tower. The building is absolutely steeped in history. And it's probably a good time to visit the Tower this summer. Usually, on a normal summer, there'll be thousands of people in there. You'll be queuing for hours. But a lot quieter in London this year, so a good time to visit a lot of these attractions. If you don't like queuing for everything.
Kung ano dito ti London Bridge.
Tower Bridge. Sunod agdudwa deta agpangato.
Akala ko nakmo data ti London Bridge di agpi. Agkwa. Ay, magayam. Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge pala to. Nga London Bridge. Di London Bridge. Yun yung yun yung ano.
Okay folks, we are heading down to Greenwich now. Welcome on board to the passengers who have just joined us at Tower Pier. For the benefit of these passengers, a brief safety announcement. Now the boat we're all travelling on is fully equipped with all up-to-date modern life-saving apparatus. And emergency exits are clearly marked around the boat with green and white stickers. In the highly unlikely event of an emergency, instructions will be given by crew members. Okay, no need to worry, please do. And Tower Bridge is eastern boundary line. So we've now left the City of London, we've entered into London's East End. Off to our left hand side we have the areas of Wapping and Whitechapel. And to our right the area of South East London, Rotherhithe and Bermondsey. As we make our way down to Greenwich folks, we're going to see lots of riverside homes and lots of riverside apartments. A lot of these buildings were once warehouses which stored goods and cargoes like teas, coffees, spices, rices, etc. Most of these old warehouses are now riverside homes. And coming up on the left, this was one of the very first warehouses to be converted into riverside apartments, Oliver's Wharf. And over the years, we've had some very famous people living in Oliver's Wharf. One of the most famous, Cher, the singer-actress, who actually owned a penthouse suite in Oliver's Wharf a few years ago. They were formed before the first official land police in this country, the Bow Street Runners. Now the Thames Police was set up by ship owners and the Admiralty to try and put an end to the thieving ways out here on the Thames. Years ago, all cargo that used to arrive into the Admiralty to try and put an end to the thieving ways. To our right, amongst the trees, there's a church spire. That is St Mary's Church of Rotherhithe. And buried in the grounds of this church, ship, the Mayflower, which was actually crewed with people from the area on the right. There's the Mayflower Hub as well, that little black and white building. It's got the British and American flags flying from the front. Look to the roof of the pub there. There's a replica of the ship acting as a weather vane, which you'll see a bit clearer. There you go, as it sits against the white background. And once the Mayflower ship left this point, it went round to the south coast of England and stopped at various ports along the way, picking up its passengers, who would later become known as the Pilgrim Fathers, before setting sail to find them. Off to our left, lots and lots of riverside apartments. The old warehouses always have the names on the front of the buildings. Here we see New Crane Wharf and Metropolitan Wharf. Now the word wharf is quite an odd word. It's an Anglo-Saxon word over 1,000 years old, and it means quay or dockside. Follow the buildings along on the left, and eventually you'll come to a small white building next to a willow tree, which is one of the oldest and most famous pubs to stand on the banks of the Thames, the Prospect of Whitby.
Huh?
It dates back to the year 1520. Originally called the Pelican. In its long lifetime, it's had many different names. Now the pub sits in the area of Wapping, which is just on the outskirts of the city of London. And during the reign of King Henry VIII, Wapping was a dangerous, a squalid place to live. And life expectancy wasn't very high. And during this time, folks, the pub became known as the Devil's Tavern, when it was frequented by many unsaved murderers and smugglers, all drinking in the establishment and around this time. And as I said, over the years, the name of the pub changed quite a bit, but the clientele, not too much really. In there today, you'll find bankers, estate agents, politicians, those kinds of people. Although, don't let that put you off, it is still a very nice place. Watch this, ladies and gents, that the old warehouses always sit right on the river's edge. It's a requirement by law today that new buildings have a footpath between the river's edge and the building itself. And this isn't the case with the old warehouses. They always sit right on the river front, and this was so years ago. Barges could be placed alongside the building and then be unloaded. Globe Wharf was an old rice warehouse. About 50 years ago now, you'd have up to 20 barges sat outside that building waiting to be unloaded. Now folks, just ahead of us on the left hand side, there's a dock entrance just coming into view. It's the entrance into the Lighthouse Marina. And once you've passed through these lock gates, ahead of you, there are 2,000 miles of inland waterways and canals. Look to the left of the lock entrance, there's a small red bricks building. It's got the lighting outside. Now this is a pub. It's called the Narrow at Lighthouse, and it's owned by the famous foul-mouthed chef, Gordon Ramsay. He owns the pub on the left, the Narrow at Lighthouse. Sometimes we pass by here, and if the wind is blowing in the right direction, printing the grapes at the top in gold letters, there you can see. And the pub was actually bought a few years ago by an English actor, Sir Ian McKellen. He bought the pub. He actually lives a couple of doors along from the pub, right next door to Cher. Oh look, there she is, cleaning a witness. It's a very nice area to visit. It's actually been described as a mini Manhattan. There's lots of large open space and lots of impressive modern looking buildings. Very very nice walking around Canary Wharf. The area of land that Canary Wharf sits on, folks, is called the Isle of Dogs. And it's a piece of land that's shaped like a horseshoe. This land on the left, it runs all the way down to Henham.
Herons, cormorants and other waterfowl have returned. Dolphins and porpoises have been spotted at Tower Bridge, and seals visit Canary Wharf.
Kumade, giglakay nga rin nga nagpicture-picture kayo ko eh. Damdaman ko ah.
Challenges every day.
Ada jelly coat.
Climate change. We can never again take the health of this river for granted. For the sake of England and the world, may the liquid history of the Thames be a story for future generations to tell with pride. And a generous dollop of cream, not to mention plenty of good British tea. Spend an evening on the Sundowner cruise, relaxing on the river while live music plays in the background and the stunning sights of London.
Yan ang oldest police station nila.
In the early days of the Port of London, ships often anchored in midstream. Lighter men or freight carriers unloaded the ship's cargo onto barges. Between ship and shore, pirates and smugglers sometimes robbed the lighter men's barges. Later, William the Conqueror built a fortification at the eastern end of the wall. This became the Tower of London, the ancient stone fortress with 4 domed turrets.
The main span of Tower Bridge opens in the centre to let tall ships sail through. The bridge also has an overhead walkway added, so pedestrians could cross when the bridge was up.
O, di ba may nagpipicture pa dito ng mga
We're approaching our
bagong
next stop
kasal.
at Tower Pier. Please remain seated until the boat stops.
O, di ba?
If Tower Pier
Di ba? Ayun na. Iranamti summer ata naglamiis din.
The fire started, a candle set alight a bakery on Pudding Lane in 1666. Including this one. The one before this one, however, is still standing somewhere around the road. Does anybody know where? Cathedral.
So,
Now, it
ito
was
po
built
ang
in the
school ni Harry
1700s
Potter.
by a man called Sir Christopher Wren. 1710 to be precise, by a man called Sir Christopher Wren. He devoted 35 years of his life to building it. Have a quick look around for all your personal items. Do just remain seated until we're safely alongside, okay? There can be a slight bump from time to time, so it is safer to remain seated. Like I said, have a look around for your personal items, bags, wallets, phones, children. Take them home with you.